Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. On August 15, 2020, on the eve of the Independence Day, Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Modi addressed the nation from the ramparts of the Red Fort. Mr. Modi declared that his government is considering raising the minimum legal age of marriage for women. Why? Mr. Modi said, when a girl child is married at an early age, she suffers from malnutrition. The intention of the government is based on a belief, and the belief is this: if we raise the minimum legal age of marriage for girls, what will happen? What will be the consequence? It will improve the health and the nutritional standard of women. Not just women, it will also improve the health and the nutritional standard of infants as well. Before Prime Minister Modi's speech, a committee was set up by the Government of India, headed by former President of the Samata Party, Ms. Jaya Jaitley. This committee was tasked to relook at the minimum legal age of marriage for girls. The committee met a lot of stakeholders, university students, prominent NGOs and others, and submitted report to the Prime Minister's office as well as the Union Ministry of Women and Child Development. This month, the Union Cabinet cleared a bill, a proposal, and the proposal is to raise the minimum legal age of marriage for girls from existing 18 to 21. In this video, let us look at all that you need to know regarding this topic. We will look at arguments in favor of this bill, arguments against, other issues related to this topic and the way forward. But before we do that, I urge you to like this video, comment your thoughts, subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet, and share the links of these classes with your friends and fellow aspirants. Let's look at the Child Marriage Restraint Act of 1929. We were still the colony of the British. One individual, Mr. Harbilas Sharda, introduced a bill in the Imperial Legislative Council. Why? To restrain child marriage. According to this law, the minimum age of marriage for women should be 14, and for that of men or boys should be 18. But this law could not be implemented. Why? Because the British government decided not to implement this law because we don't want to affect the sensibilities of the radical communalists. After the independence, the year was 1949. The minimum legal age of marriage for girls was enhanced to 15. For that of boys, it remained 18. The year was 1978. When this minimum age of marriage for girls, it was increased, it was enhanced to 18, and that of boys, it was enhanced to 21. This was the Child Marriage Restraint Act of 1929. But then the year was 2006. The year was 2006, and this Sharda Act, it was replaced by Prohibition of Child Marriage Act, and this law was passed in the year 2006. Why? Because the focus of the government shifted from restraint to prohibition. Total prohibition of child marriages. And it is according to this law that the minimum legal age of marriage for girls is 18, and for that of boys is 21. But now you might be asking, why is there a difference? Why is the minimum legal age of marriage for girls 18 lower than 21, which is the minimum legal age of marriage for boys? Because there is a belief, a perception, ladkiyan jaldi badi hoti hai. The women, the girls, they mature faster. And if they mature faster, they should be married off at an early age. Boys, they are always immature. It is this law which is sought to be amended. That is why we call it Prohibition of Child Marriage Amendment Bill 2021. And it is this law which seeks to amend the 2006 law to enhance the minimum legal age of marriage for girls to 21, so that we bring about a parity. So that the minimum legal age of marriage for both boys as well as girls is 21. But there can be a question on your mind. Will this law, when it is passed, will this law also override other personal laws? Because we do not have a uniform civil code in this country. Different religious communities are governed differently when it comes to their personal laws. Personal laws related to marriage, divorce, inheritance, adoption, they are dealt with separately. Yes, this law will override all these personal laws. Because look at the text of this law, the text of this proposal, the text of this bill. Notwithstanding anything contrary or inconsistent mentioned anywhere else, whether it is the Christian Act, Parsi Act, Hindu Marriage Act, Muslim Personal Law, Shariat Application Act, Special Marriage Act, whatever law we have in this country, this bill will override all those provisions. Which means doesn't matter whether a particular religion believes that minimum legal age is 14 or 16 or puberty, doesn't matter. This law will override all the personal laws when it comes to marriage. That means minimum legal age of marriage for girls as well as boys will remain the same, which is 21 if this bill is passed by the Parliament. This bill, it was referred to the Parliamentary Standing Committee. This bill is currently pending. Now let's look at the arguments in favor of this law. Then we will look at the arguments against this law. Then we will look at some other issues surrounding this topic and then the way forward. Our Constitution believes in equality. Article 14 talks about equality before law. Not just equality. Our Constitution believes that there should be no discrimination. Our Constitution believes and guarantees prohibition of discrimination on the grounds of sex. Article 15 of the Constitution says the state shall not discriminate against any citizen only on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. When there can be no discrimination only on the grounds of sex, why is it that minimum legal age of boys is 21 and that of women, that of girls is 18? This discrimination will end if this bill is passed by the Parliament. I told you the reason. What was the reason why minimum legal age of marriage for girls is lesser than that of boys? And I told you one reason is that girls mature faster, or that's the belief. The girls mature faster than the boys. But there is a hidden patriarchal mindset here. For a boy, the minimum legal age for marriage is 21. What is the idea? The idea is that this boy is the caretaker of the family. This boy provides wealth, provides opportunities, provides food, all the necessities for a decent life to his family. That means this boy needs to work. For that, this boy needs to complete education, enter into the job market, get financial stability, and then run his family. What about the girl? She has got nothing to do. She is fit to just take care of the kitchen. And for that, once she attains the age of 18, marry her off. No education, no financial independence. It is this historic mistake which will be corrected if the minimum legal age of marriage for both boys as well as girls is the same, which is 21. That means on one hand, our Constitution believes in equality. On the other hand, our Constitution believes and guarantees that there can be no discrimination on the grounds of sex. And to implement this constitutional guarantee, this constitutional promise, we have this bill, which is same minimum legal age of marriage for both boys as well as girls. Not just that, we are facing twin problems. Twin problems of higher maternal mortality rate and higher infant mortality rate. Those who support this bill, they have a belief, they have an idea. The idea is we have high maternal mortality rate, we have high infant mortality rate, and the reason for that is we are marrying a girl at an early age because she is not too healthy, she is not physically very strong, and that leads to pregnancy-related complications. That leads to maternal mortality rate getting higher and higher. And since this girl child is not in a position to take care of the new infant as well, within 1 year of the child being born, we see lots of deaths also taking place. If we increase the minimum legal age of marriage, we are going to improve the maternal mortality rate. In a sense, we will lower maternal mortality rate. We will also lower infant mortality rate. Not just that. If this minimum legal age of marriage is enhanced, increased, it will make responsible fathers and mothers. It will enhance the possibility of responsible parenthood. Why? Because if the girl is 21, boy is also 21, we have this horrible practice of female feticide. Whenever we detect that it is going to be a girl child, we kill her inside the womb of her mother. The logic is, if the minimum legal age of marriage of girl is enhanced to 21, she will then become psychologically very strong, and she will be in a position to withstand the pressures of her in-laws, and she will not allow her fetus to be killed, her girl child to be killed inside the womb, which means it is going to also improve sex ratio at birth. And when the girl child is also mature, above the age of 21, the boy is also mature, above the age of 21, they will focus on the nutritional requirements of their family. That is another important thing. That is another advantage. That's another plus point that's going to happen if this bill is passed by the Parliament. Not just that, we have another problem of teenage pregnancies. Teenagers, they marry, they become pregnant. Logic says they are physically very weak, and because they are physically weak, it leads to complications in pregnancy, it leads to miscarriages as well, it leads to stillbirths as well. And these other challenges of more and more miscarriages, of stillbirths, will also be prevented if the minimum legal age of marriage is enhanced to 21. Not just that, financial independence. Right now, the minimum legal age of marriage for girl is 18. If this bill is passed, what will be the minimum legal age? 21. How many years? 3 years. What will this girl do in these 3 years? She will complete her education. She will enter the job market. She will become financially secure. She will become financially independent, and she will no longer be dependent upon the mercies of a man, whether it's her father, whether it's her brother, whether it is her husband, whatever. And imagine, once a girl becomes financially secure, independent, financially confident, maybe she will refuse to marry after 21. Maybe she will refuse to marry the person selected by her family. Maybe she will choose the person of her own choice. This is women's empowerment to a T. This is women's empowerment, because this financial independence, and there is no substitute to financial independence. All if you give to a woman financial independence, she is going to move mountains. That's the crux of this bill. Although the government says, or the government is silent as to whether this bill is also targeting population control. The government does not say this. The government is silent on this matter. The government does not say that one of the objectives of this bill is to ensure population control. But even if it is, what's wrong? The manner, the rate at which we are reproducing, we will soon surpass China as the most populous country of the world. We do not have unlimited resources. We have limited resources. Imagine massive population competing for the same number of minimum limited resources. It's going to be dangerous. So one of the other consequences of this bill, when it is passed and when it becomes a law, is that it will also lead to population control. So what's wrong with that? Which basically means, right now the minimum legal age of marriage is 18. If it is enhanced to 21, that means we will delay marriage of a vast majority of women, which means ultimately what will happen? The population control measure will also result. That's another important thing about this bill. The last one, laws may not change society, but they are first steps towards making a change in the society. But we cannot implement this change in a jiffy, which means we have to provide time to the people to accept this change, to accept the good implications of this law. And for that, the government has taken one more important step. The government is saying that these amendments will enter into force 2 years from the date of presidential assent. That means if the president gives his assent to this bill in 2022, the amendments will enforce from the year 2024. 2 years will be given for the people to reconcile with this change, to accept this change, to realize the positive aspect of this change. That's another good thing regarding this bill. Not just that. We have seen allegations against the government that government is using its brute majority on the floor of the parliament and pushing the bills. Farm bills are being pushed. Farm bills were repealed and they were pushed. No debate, no discussion. Sometimes the bills are passed by voice vote. But here, look at the magnanimity shown by the government. The government could have passed this bill because it enjoys majority on the floor of the parliament. But what it did, it referred this bill to the Parliamentary Standing Committee. Let there be good debate, enough debate, positive debate, discussions. That's the job of the parliament. Maybe this bill will be further improved. Maybe the protection, benefits for a woman will be further enhanced by the debate of the parliamentarians, provided they debate on the provisions of this bill. That's another good thing regarding this bill. So what is the proposal? The proposal is to raise the minimum legal age of marriage for women from 18 to 21 to bring them at par with men or boys. What are the arguments in favor? We listed down 6 arguments in favor of this proposal. Now let's look at the arguments against. There are farmers today protesting, asking for a guarantee on MSP, minimum support price. There are some farmers who are asking for farm loan waiver. There are some farmers asking for guarantees on electricity, lesser tariffs on electricity that they use for agriculture. There are students demanding jobs. There are students demanding exams, that railway exams have not been conducted, teachers' exams have not been conducted. So different people demand different things from the government. Who demanded? Who asked for it? That the minimum legal age of marriage should be increased from 18 to 21. Have you heard of any protest? Have you heard of any demand coming from any section of the society that we urgently need to increase the minimum legal age of marriage of women from 18 to 21? Who asked for it? When no one asked for it, what is the need to bring in this law? Because this law is, after all, for the benefit of the people of this country, for the benefit of the women. Have women asked for these changes? If not, then what's the purpose? That's the first fundamental flaw with this bill. Fundamental flaw number 2, reason for malnutrition. Mr. Modi says that when girls are married off at an early age, they suffer from malnutrition. Yes, statistics tell us that if we look at statistics, we look at the data, we see that malnutrition amongst women is increasing. We also look at, particularly amongst those who are married off at an early age, in them also we see increasing incidence of malnutrition. But what is the cause of malnutrition? That's not early marriageable age. The cause of malnutrition is poverty. How poverty? Here is a girl child. She is married off at an early age. Why is she married off at an early age? She is married off at an early age because of poverty. Why poverty? I'll tell you the reason. And look at the studies conducted at different points in time in this country. Study number 1, what do they say? Girls are married off at an early age. Why? Because of escalation in dowry demands. Rate of inflation is high. If the demand for dowry is today one amount, tomorrow it's going to increase manifold. So marry the girl at an early age because there is an escalation in the dowry demands, despite the fact that accepting dowry is prohibited by law. This is the reason why girls from poor households are married off at an early age. Reason number 1, escalation in dowry demands. Reason number 2, poverty. Poverty in terms of the family which is already poor has to take care of the girl child. Now they want to get rid of this girl child, wants to marry her off and give the responsibility of this girl child to someone else. Poverty is the reason why girls are married off at an early age. It's not that girls of an early age, when they marry, they suffer from malnutrition. They are already malnourished. Another reason, fear of sexual assault, lack of security. Family members fear for the safety of their girl child, particularly in rural India, particularly amongst the poor, marginalized, disadvantaged sections of the society. And since there is always this fear of sexual assault, these are not my words, these are various studies conducted. These studies tell us it's the fear of the sexual assault that is pushing the families to marry their girl child at an early age. And there is a patriarchal mindset as well. This girl is pariah dhan. When the girl is pariah dhan, that means we have to marry her sooner. Sooner, because this is not our property. This is pariah dhan, often of someone else. That means, yes, malnutrition is prevalent, it's a rampant, but the cause of malnutrition may not be early marriageable age. The cause of malnutrition is poverty. Otherwise, look at the urban India. Look at people belonging to the wealthy sections of the society, upper sections of the society. Those families who are not poor, they do not marry their girl child at an early age. Statistics tell us that majority of the cases, it is the girl belonging to a poor family who is married off at an early age. So by increasing the minimum legal age of marriage from 18 to 21, you're not going to change malnutrition. You're not going to tackle malnutrition. You're not going to eradicate malnutrition. For that, you need to eradicate the fundamental cause of distress, which is poverty. Yes, there are statistics. In fact, there is a report, and this report was funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It is this report which has been cited by those who support this bill. According to this report, there is an increasing incidence and prevalence of malnutrition, particularly amongst those girls who are married off at an early age. Have you heard of a phrase, putting cart before the horse? This report is like putting the statistical cart before the horse of social realities. And the reality is that if early marriageable age is the cause of malnutrition, why is it that those who marry at the age of 24 or above, they still suffer from malnutrition? Because they come from poor sections of the society. Which means the nutritional and the health standard of a woman does not increase when she is married off at a higher age, provided she is from a poor family, from poverty-stricken family. That means the root cause of poverty, of malnutrition, is poverty, and that's poverty that we will have to tackle, not increasing the minimum legal age of marriage for girls. That's argument number 2 against this proposal, against this bill. Third, young women in this country, they're already scripting change, and that too voluntarily. Jaya Jaitley committee met various stakeholders, and she came up with a report. According to newspapers, the report says that overwhelming majority of the women, of the girls that this committee met, they are in support of raising the minimum legal age of marriage for girls from 18 to 21. But she spoke to, or the committee spoke to, university students who are already well off, who already are so strong that they are already present in the schools and the colleges, who come from upper sections of the society. They are not stricken by poverty. And it is this class of women who is scripting change, and that too voluntarily. How? According to Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, the mean age of marriage in India has increased to 22.1. That too without any fear of law. That too without any tricks and the turbulations of the police. It is done voluntarily. That means women, young women particularly, who are in the job market, who are in the colleges or universities, who have received education, they are already scripting change without any law. So why, when the young women are already scripting change, that too voluntarily, what is the need for this law? That's argument number 3. Argument number 4, this leads to women's infantilization. A woman is of the age of 18. If she's of the age of 16, she can drive a gearless vehicle. If she's of the age of 18, she can drive a car with gears, motorcycle with gears. In majority of the states in India, she is old enough to drink. At the age of 18, she has the right to vote. Look at the irony. A woman of 18 to 21 years, she has voted in these elections. And because of their vote, there are people now sitting inside the parliament who are now saying that this group of women from 18 to 21 who have elected them, they are saying that they are minors. They are saying they are children. Isn't the law called prohibition of child marriages? That means you are in the age group of 18 to 21, you are old enough to elect a representative to the parliament, but you are young enough to marry. You're not old enough to marry. It leads to women's infantilization. That's another problem with this law. There is another problem. India is a signatory to the resolution adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 1989. And it was this resolution which recommended 18 years as the minimum age. In fact, there is a convention, and India is a signatory to this convention. Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. And it is this committee, the committee of this convention, which has recommended 18 years as the age of marriage. We are going against our commitments which we have made before the international community. This is another problem with this bill. Now there is another important issue. Education is the key. Give women education and they are going to change the life of the millions of the people. If you educate a person, a man, you're only educating an individual. That's what Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru said. But if you are educating a woman, you are educating the entire family, which basically means you are educating the entire society. Education, my dear, holds the key. Look at the data. A study by International Center for Research on Women, what it says, something interesting. Girls out of school, those who are not in school, those who have come out of schools, those who have dropped out of schools, those who have not completed schooling, they are 3.4 times more likely to be married at an early age than those who are already in school or still in school. That means if you're not in school, if you have dropped out of the school, you are 3.4 times more likely to marry at the age of 18 or lesser than those who are still in the school. Which means give education to the girl child. Automatically, on its own, early marriages will stop. Another study, State of the World report by United Nations Population Fund. In India, 51% of young women with no education, 47% of those with only primary education, they had married by the age of 18. Lesser your educational status, more early are you likely to get married. 51% of young women who are illiterate, they marry before the age of 18. 47% of the women who are only educated till the primary stage, they marry before the age of 18. Compare this with, if a girl has secondary education, only 29% of these women, they marry before the age of 18. And those who are with postgraduate degree, only 4% of them marry by the age of 18. What does this signify? Give more educational opportunities to girls, more likely are they going to focus on their careers, on their education, rather than focusing on the marriage. Which means education, my dear, is the key. Just by making amendment to a law, increasing the minimum legal age of marriage from 18 to 21, we are not going to script any change unless and until we empower a girl child with good, proper, quality education. There is another issue. This is something dangerous. Data says 56% of the women in the age group of 20 to 24, they marry before attaining the age of 21. What are you trying to say? 56%. More than half of the marriages, 56%, more than half of the women in the age group of 20 to 24, when do they marry? They marry before the age of 21. Trends don't change overnight, which means this trend is going to continue for a foreseeable future as well. Do you know what you're doing? You are criminalizing more than half of the girl population. That's the problem with this law. There is another issue. This law is neither feasible, nor grounded in evidence, nor respectful of women's rights. Why is this law not feasible? We already have a law which prohibits child marriages. That means the marriage of a girl child below the age of 18. Even then, child marriages persist. That means despite the fact that we have a law which prohibits child marriages below the age of 18 for a girl child, we still have not eradicated child marriages. And how can now we enhance it to 21, which means increase the spread of our target audience from 18 years to 21 years? It is not feasible to implement this, to effectively implement this, because we failed to tackle child marriages less than the age of 18. How can we be sure that when we increase the canvas of our population from 18 to 21, we are going to be successful? So this law is not feasible. It's not grounded in evidence as well. Because what do you say? You say if a girl child is married off at an early age, she suffers from malnutrition. But the source, the reason of malnutrition is poverty, not early marriageable age. So this law is neither feasible because you can't implement it in a better fashion. Second, it is not grounded in evidence because your logic is wrong. And third, it is not respectful of women's rights. What about women's right to marry, which is a fundamental right under Article 21 of the Constitution? And the same Supreme Court which gave fundamental right to marry to every single woman, to every single citizen of this country, the same Supreme Court in majority of the judgments have said 18 is the age of maturity. 18 is the age of adulthood. So how can you deny this right to marry to a woman of the age 18? A woman may want to marry somebody of her choice, but the family is objecting to this marriage. She wants to run away. It's a teenage, beautiful relationship. They want to run away. Now you might say that this is illogical. Why should we support them? But she is part of this phrase, we the people of India. And it is her who has given herself this constitution. Because constitution is not the gift of foreign power. Constitution is the gift of the people of this country to themselves. She may want to elope, run away from her family, and then marry the sweetheart of her choice. But she has to wait for 21, till the age of 21. Why? This is women's infantilization, and this is not respectful of women's rights. These are the arguments against this bill, against this proposal to enhance the minimum legal age of marriage for girls from 18 to 21. But there are other issues as well. Age of consent. What is age of consent? At what age can a girl give consent to a sexual interaction, to a sexual intercourse? This age of consent is 18. Initially it was 12, it was then raised to 14, then it was raised to 16. The year was 2013 when it was raised to 18. What is the rationale? The rationale is that a minor is not capable of understanding his actions or her actions, and thereby is not in a position to understand the consequences of those actions. That is why there is a law which prohibits sex with minors. There is a law which prohibits sex amongst minors. This age of consent is 18. So a girl is old enough at the age of 18 to give consent to a sexual intercourse, but she is not old enough to start a family, to marry. This is women's infantilization. In fact, there have been many reports, many studies which have suggested to the government that instead you should reduce the age of consent from 18 to 16. Why? I'll tell you a reason. Have you heard of Juvenile Justice Act of 2015? It was because of this judgment that the law said, it was because of this law that children in the age group of 16 to 18, boys in the age group of 16 to 18, if they commit heinous crimes, they can be tried as adults. Prior to this law, if a juvenile was somebody below the age of 18, if this juvenile would have committed any crime, the maximum punishment that could be awarded to this juvenile was 3 years, that too not in a regular home, but in a reform home. That means the law made a distinction between juveniles and adults. Juveniles cannot be tried like an adult. But then there was hue and cry. Hue and cry primarily because of Nirbhaya gang rape. 2012, I think December 16, 2012, if I'm right, Nirbhaya was gang raped in a moving bus. One of the rapists turned out to be a juvenile, few months short of the age of 18. The maximum punishment that was awarded to this juvenile was 3 years in a reform home, and after that he was released. What happened to the other rapists? One committed suicide inside the jail and others were hanged. But this juvenile was not hanged. There was huge protest, hue and cry, and ultimately few data was presented, reports were presented, statistics were presented, that there is an increased incidence of crime committed by boys in the age group of 16 to 18. In the age group of 16 to 18, crimes have been committed. And that is why we need to try these juveniles in the age group of 16 to 18 as adults. Yes, there may be some truth in the fact that yes, there has been some perceptible increase in the crimes committed by boys in the age group of 16 to 18. But there is another side of the story as well. The another side of the story is fake cases. Fake cases, boy and a girl, both are less than the age of 18. Teenage crush, fell in a relationship, they eloped, ran away from their homes, and ultimately developed sexual interaction as well. But what is the age of consent for a girl? 18. A girl below the age of 18, even if she indulges in consensual sexual interaction, it is still rape, because a girl child below the age of 18 cannot give consent because she is treated as a minor. Now this couple entered into a sexual interaction. The parents of the girl child, they caught hold of them, and now the parents are pressurizing the girl that you have to support us. We will file a rape charge against this boy, and this boy is sentenced under the anti-rape laws, Indian Penal Code, section 375 of the Indian Penal Code. Because what is rape? With or without her consent, when she is under the 16 years of age. And this 16 years of age was later on enhanced to 18 years of age. That means a girl child before the age of 18, she cannot give consent. Which means what is happening today? 2019, judgment of Madras High Court. boy and a girl, they eloped. The age of the boy is not known, but the age of the girl is 17. They ran away, they eloped, and for 6 months they were staying somewhere. And after that, they were caught. The family now filed a charge against this boy under Indian Penal Code because it's a rape, as well as POCSO, prevention of sexual offences against children, or prevention of child sexual offences. The Madras High Court said that this is the classic example of a teenage attraction, which is common at that age. Madras High Court requested the government, urged the government that you should reduce the age of consent from 18 to 16. Another related issue to this bill is, what about the age of consent? Should age of consent also then be enhanced to 21? If it is enhanced to 21, we are going to produce more and more rapists in this country. Instead, age of consent, various studies show, should be reduced to 16. We are talking about women's empowerment. Those who are the proponents of this bill, they say we are doing it for the sake of women, for their empowerment, because we want to empower them. Why don't you empower them by making marital rape a criminal offense? What is rape? Sexual intercourse with a woman against her will. But this marriage certificate is treated as the consent of a woman for her entire life. Even during her marriage, she may not want to give consent on a particular day. There have been instances where the husbands force themselves on their wives. It is still not a crime because a woman has given her consent when she has signed up for marriage, and this consent is for entire life. Empower women by making marital rape also a criminal offense. In fact, Indian Penal Code strangely said that sexual intercourse by a man with his own wife is not rape if the woman or the girl child, or if the wife is above the age of 15. Below the age of 15, if the wife is below the age of 15, it will be rape. But later on, because of various Supreme Court judgments, pronouncements, Supreme Court said, no, it should not be 15, it should be 18. That means if the wife is below the age of 18, since the age of consent is 18, even if the wife is giving you consent, it's still rape. But what about if a wife is 21, 25, 35, 65? Marital rape should still be a crime. Because what is rape? Sexual intercourse with a woman against her will. She may not give her consent even during marriage. And that is women's empowerment. That is something that we need. These are other issues. Something else. What about judicial attitude? We are talking about women's empowerment. Can change of the law change the judicial attitudes as well? What are these attitudes that I'm talking about? Mohinder Singh case. The year was 1999. Mohinder Singh raped his own daughter. Matter went to the court. The court said this is rarest of the rare case. Death sentence should be awarded to Mohinder Singh. Matter went to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said no, this is not the rarest of the rare case. Impose life imprisonment on Mohinder Singh. Okay. Mohinder Singh was later released on parole. While on parole, he hacked his daughter to death, also killed his own wife. Matter went to the court. The High Court said this is the rarest of the rare case. Death sentence should be awarded to Mohinder Singh. An appeal was filed in the Supreme Court. The year was 2013. January 2013 to be precise. Two judges were hearing this case. Justice P. Sathasivam and Justice Khalifullah. Justice P. Sathasivam later on became the Chief Justice of India. And he also served as the Governor of the state of Kerala. Both these judges are saying, this is not the rarest of the rare case. Yes, this is a horrible crime. But Mohinder Singh may be a threat to his family. He is not a threat to his society. That is why we cannot give death sentence to Mohinder Singh. his death sentence is commuted to life imprisonment. Okay. Mohinder Singh, Justice P. Sathasivam, few weeks later, in February 2013, the same judge, Justice P. Sathasivam, is hearing another case. This time, it is Sundarajan. What Sundarajan did? He kidnapped a 7-year-old boy and then killed the 7-year-old boy. Matter went to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said this is rarest of the rare case. One of the judge who gave this judgment was Justice P. Sathasivam, who few weeks ago said Mohinder Singh is not a threat to the society. This is not the fit case of the rarest of the rare. But what case is the rarest of the rare? A 7-year-old boy was kidnapped and killed. Among other things, the judiciary said, imagine the plight of the family, which has lost their only male child. And this male child would have carried forwarded their family lineage. Male child is killed. Both offenses, both crimes are horrible. But a male child is killed and kidnapped. This is the rarest of the rare case. A girl is raped by her father. She is then killed. Her mother is also killed. And this is not the rarest of the rare case. Will this law change the judicial bias, the patriarchal bias, even within the judiciary? Perhaps no. These are other issues that we have to tackle as well. Let's look at another case. The recent case, Justice Pushpa V. Ganadiwala. She was all set to be appointed as the judge of a high court. But luckily or unluckily for her, the Supreme Court Collegium decided not to promote her. She's a judge, Nagpur bench. She gave 2 judgments which shook the foundation, the soul of India. What did she say? In one of the judgment, she basically said, touching a minor girl's breast without removing the top would not fall within the definition of sexual assault. Unless and until there is no skin-to-skin contact, it cannot be a sexual assault. Who will change the judicial mindset? Will this bill change it? Will this law change it? On one hand, we are talking about bringing in laws to empower the women, but we also have to be a witness to judicial attitudes. Unfortunately, in some instances, it reeks of patriarchal bias. And the biggest highlight or hallmark or sorry state of affairs of judiciary when it comes to women's rights is Batti Devi case 1992. Batti Devi, she was a Sathin, basically helping the government at the grassroots, helping people so that they are aware of various laws, various benefits should be provided to the people, and Sathin played a very important role. But she was considered to be a woman of lower caste. Child marriages were going on. And there is one auspicious day in Rajasthan when hundreds and thousands and lakhs of child marriages, also according to reports, have been performed. There was a child marriage where I guess 5-month-old child was to be married because this is considered to be a very auspicious day. She persuaded the government of Rajasthan, decided to launch a campaign that we should discourage, prohibit child marriages. She also played a part. But because of her activism, the members of the other higher caste community could not tolerate this. 5 men barged into her house, assaulted her husband. I'm telling you a story. It's a very shocking story, but that's precisely the reason why I'm telling you this story. I want to shake your conscience and tell you what is happening. 5 men barged into her house. Her husband was brutally assaulted, badly beaten, and then men took turns after turns to rape her. Her case was not even accepted. Initially, the police was reluctant to even file the FIR, but because of the media campaign, Rajasthan Patrika carried a very small story, which was later on picked by newspapers, national newspapers as well. Lots of hue and cry. Ultimately, FIR was registered. In fact, there was bias against her even by the medical fraternity, but we don't have to go too deep into that story. If you want, you can search it up. Long story short, now the court had to decide whether these 5 men are guilty of committing rape of Batti Devi or not. The Supreme Court said all these 5 men guilty of rape, they are acquitted. Why? 2 shocking reasons. Reason number 1, the court said we don't understand how when her wife was gang raped, her husband meekly surrendered and did nothing. That's why we don't believe that the rape has taken place. Okay. Reason number 2, a shocking reason number 2. 5 men who raped, there was an individual who was uncle and the other individual was a nephew. The court said shockingly that in Indian context, we cannot expect, we cannot accept, we can't understand that an uncle is raping somebody in presence of his nephew. That is why these 5 men are acquitted. That's the bias. But luckily, Supreme Court itself came to the rescue. The year was 1997. Based on Batti Devi's plight, a collective called Vishaka approached the Supreme Court and said Vishaka was gang raped, assaulted because she was not provided protection. She was working for the government. She was at a workplace. Women are not prevented and protected at workplace. We need a law which should prevent sexual harassment of women at workplaces. The Supreme Court accepted and in 1997 released guidelines called Vishaka Guidelines. And these Vishaka Guidelines became basis of Prevention of Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act of 2013. Vishaka Guidelines of 1997. Other issues are, what about the judicial attitude? And this law is not going to change it. If we really need to empower women and change the discourse, we need to conduct gender sensitization programs, even for judiciary, for police, for others as well. Something else, and this is a question that can be on your mind. What is the status of child marriages or legal status of child marriages? Let's say there is a girl below the age of 18, she's married. Is this marriage legal? Is this marriage valid? Or tomorrow if the law is changed and the minimum legal age of marriage is 21, what will happen to those marriages which are solemnized below the age of 21, whether it's a boy or a girl, whether it's a girl? These marriages are valid but voidable. What does that mean? The girl is married before the age of 18. If the girl is married before the age of 18, which is the current minimum legal age of marriage, this marriage is still valid. But when the girl turns mature, which means when the girl turns 18, then for 2 years, which means up to the age of 20, she can approach the courts to null this marriage. The girl is married before the age of 18, maybe at the age of 12, 13, 15, 16. Is this marriage legal? Yes. Is this marriage valid? Yes. But it can be voidable. How? Once the girl attains the age of 18, within 2 years, she can approach the judiciary and say, I was married before the legal age. This marriage I don't want to continue with. I want you to terminate this marriage, to declare this marriage void. This can happen. What does this law say, this bill say, which is currently pending in the Parliament? It says, now at the age of 23 or till the age of 23. That means if a girl is married before the age of 21, will this marriage be valid? Yes. But can it be voidable? Yes. That means once the girl attains the age of 21, then within 2 years, that means up to 23 years of age, she can approach the court and ask that this marriage should be made void, should be declared null. That can happen. Now let's look at the last part. What is the way forward? The way forward is we need women's reservation in legislatures. The real empowerment of the women would be if women are capable of taking the decisions on their own. They are taking the decisions, making the laws for their own betterment. For decades today, the Women's Reservation Bill is pending. No action is taken. The real empowerment of women begins when 33% of members of the parliament and the state legislatures will be women. So that they are in a position to decide their own destiny. They are in a position to decide what is good for them. Men in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, state legislative assemblies, they don't have the right to decide what is good for a woman. Let women take a call. It's high time. It's 21st century. It's 2021. Let women decide what's good for them. That's number one. Number two, universal basic income. What is your argument? Malnutrition? What is the solution? Give cash, and give this cash to a woman. Various studies have been conducted, numerous studies, where it has been proven beyond any reasonable doubt that if cash is given to a woman, she spends it well. She spends it on education, she spends it on nutrition, she spends it on health. She does not misspend it like a man on liquor, on cigarettes, on gambling. If we really want malnutrition to be eradicated in this country, we need a universal basic income. And for that, cash should be given in the hands of a woman. That is women's empowerment. Or accept the suggestions of the Law Commission. Way back in 2008, the Law Commission recommended keep the minimum eligible age of marriage for both boys as well as girls, 18. So instead of increasing it to 21, lower the minimum age of marriage for boy to 18 so that there is parity, so that there is no discrimination. Encourage skilling. We've seen how through education, because education is the key. If you are educated, you delay your marriage. If you're educated, you become financially secure, financially independent. You are not dependent upon the mercies of a man. Let women enter the job market. The pandemic has shown us another ugly story. Women's labor participation rate is falling like never before. Encourage women to take up jobs. Give them employment opportunities. Make them financially secure. Upskilling is the need of the hour. Also, thousands of women today, they are giving up their jobs. Why? Because their jobs require them to travel. And their jobs require them to travel via public transport, where women are groped by men. Despite the fact that majority of the cases, we see that there is a separate place, separate space for women inside the buses and separate space for men. But even then, this is happening. Make safe transport available to a woman. That is women's empowerment, because that will enable them not to quit their jobs, to continue in the job market and make themselves financially secure and independent. This is today's lecture on raising the minimum age of marriage for women from 18 to 21. This is also the last video of the Explained series for 2021. We will now see you next year in 2022. So this is the last video, and let's see if this last video gets the highest number of likes as well. See you next year. Have an eventful new year. May all your legitimate dreams come true. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for joining us. And if you liked it, press the like button. See you next year. Happy 2022. Bye-bye. Good night.